Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, what an introduction. My name is Amaris Cole. I'm head of digital at the Church of England. And I'm going to talk to you today about digital church. What a broad title. So I've tried to narrow it down a bit, and I'm going to really focus on thinking strategically about digital for mission, because that's really what we try to do as a team. And thanks for Matt for going over a couple of the things that we do. So as a digital team for the Church of England, we are responsible for the majority of those public-facing digital platforms that you might know come from the church, like obviously our social media channels, our big websites, the Church of England website, the Archbishop's sites, and A Church Near You, our church finder tool. And we're also responsible in leading our colleagues across the church at key times of the year, for campaigns like Advent and Christmas, Lent and Easter, and more. And we also do a lot of content creation as well in the team. So let's just start on then by looking at what is working for us online. And I wonder if there's some things that might be able to be picked up by you. Now, I'm, of course, talking from the Church of England's experience and what we're working on, but I think loads of the lessons that we're learning can be applied definitely in local churches, but also in different Christian charities and other kind of community groups. So hopefully what I'm saying makes some sense in whatever context you're joining us from here today. So the first thing then that we're always thrilled to see, and both Matts here actually have been big fans of this, so I had to put it in at the top, is our daily prayer app. Now this theme of prayer, and if I can say it in this quite crude way, but performing so well on our digital platforms, is a real trend across what we do. We even got called up by Facebook once to say, why on earth do these daily graphics that you're putting out do so well? And those are our daily prayer graphics. Those are the Church of England's collects. Tens of thousands of people are praying those each day, have done forever. And all we've done is package those up into a graphic, whack them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and allow more of an audience to see them. So prayer is something that we just cannot share enough of, which I think is great news, but it's something that's so simple. This is the prayer, this is the liturgy that Church of England's had forever, just repackaged in a new way, and is resonating with a new group of people. A Church Near You that I mentioned before, 80% of our traffic there is from first-time visitors. A Church Near You is our church finder tool. It also works as a free church website for our churches, but it just shows that people are looking for our churches. People are looking for local communities to connect with for a range of reasons. But are we there? Are we there when they're looking for us? Another thing that I'll just quickly talk about is The Way. This is a partnership we've got with a channel called The Way that we now fund across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. It's content by young people for young people. And again, it's just performing so well. It hasn't been tarnished by us older people. It's made by teenagers for teenagers with some guidance from us. And that is just doing so well. We managed to reach 30,000 teenagers throughout Easter, which we were thrilled by, something we're not always able to do across our other channels. YouTube video just continues to be popular across our channels, particularly since the start of the pandemic. We definitely stepped up our video output, but people were just there for it, which has just seen those results. And just more generally then across social media, we're continuing to get these posts in front of people. We're working hard to do that. It's not as easy as it once was, but we are continuing to see really encouraging levels across our social media channels. So that's just a little bit about what's working for us, what we're seeing growth in at the moment. But I said that we're going to think strategically today, and I really do want us to do that. And it's so simple, but what we try to think about continuously as we're thinking about maintaining some of those platforms, those projects that are working across our digital platforms, but also thinking of that innovative new stuff. What can we dip our toe in? What can we try out as a digital team? Constantly thinking about why, who, and how. And that's really going to shape our session today. So what we think and what I'd encourage you to be thinking about, whatever your context is, as you're pushing forward with what's possible for you digitally, is the why. So where are you? How can people connect with you? Maybe that's in person, maybe that's already digitally. But then think about who are you actually trying to reach? Now, it's so easy to say everyone, and of course that would be great, but we need to get a little bit more targeted than that. Who are those audience groups that make sense for you to be reaching? Is there a specific group that perhaps you're not reaching yet and you'd love to? Is there a group who you have face-to-face, you have a face-to-face relationship with, but you're not yet managing to meet online? And we can think about what that means. And then the how are you actually going to go about doing that? So, my little icons aren't here. Okay, there we go. So we have seen such change, haven't we? We started doing some of that training that Matt kindly mentioned around 2018, and training up churches to use these new digital platforms strategically in their local communities. And I've got to say, sometimes it was a bit of an uphill battle. We used to have people in those sessions in real life. Can you believe it? They were people with arms folded, being told that they had to come along, but didn't really think it was necessary. They had their parish magazine. They had, I don't know, maybe just some emails that were being sent out, and that was enough of that. So we had a real, we had to, win hearts and minds there. Now it's just a completely different picture. And that really was at the start of the pandemic. We just saw that switch over to people saying they know they need it, but how? So we saw this real change from all of our digital platforms being about bringing people into in person, to just having digital platforms during the pandemic when many of our buildings were shut, to now a place where obviously we do long for that in-person connection, but we also honor that online community that so many of our local churches have built up and that we nationally have built up. So now the goal isn't solely to drive people into our buildings, although we would love that for that in-person relationship, but we're also able to honor that online connection, those relationships that were formed during the pandemic. So what a turnaround and what a change in the way we run our churches. And that's something that's that we need to give respect for, because the way that many of us are working has completely changed. So what is the situation? And this was definitely true for lockdown. Some of these numbers have changed, but we were seeing that 1 in 5 people watching our national online services during lockdown, which were started really, really quickly as a reaction to our church buildings being shut and not all of our local churches being able to stream or record online services in advance. So we put on these national online services, and at the peak of that, 1 in 5 watching those online services did not regularly go to church, which was amazing to us. And 1 in 3 of those were under 35. Again, not normally a number we see traditionally. A church near you. So remember, our doors were shut, yet 77 million page views that site had, with people just looking to make a connection, asking for prayer, asking how they could connect in another way with the church as the building was shut, asking for practical help, asking about food banks that our churches run and other projects like that. But even though our buildings weren't there at that time, people were still looking for us. That Tier Fund research, which I think is still really interesting, that 1 in 4 UK adults did watch some kind of religious service during lockdown. So what does that mean now? And then what do we do with all of that? So we know that it was popular during lockdown. People now have a really mixed reaction, don't they? Some churches have stopped entirely. Some have carried on as a bit of an add-on. Some have really, really invested in that online services. It's not just online services, it's all that we're doing online builds that community, but the services are an easy thing to focus on. So we did a piece of research last year now, but I think it's still valid. asking people, why were these online services so successful? Who did they resonate with? Who didn't they work for? And what does it mean for us? So it's no surprise to any of you, I'm sure, but one of the main reasons was it was just easy. You could just log on, open up your phone and join a service, and you were a bit anonymous. There was no scary walking in and choosing a seat. You could be there. You could be doing something else, but you were there and you were able to just dip your toe and see what this was all about. What can we learn from that now? How can we let people know that they can still just come and see what we're about now? And what was the motivation then? People were sharing, and this is a key. People felt a little bit more able to share that their local church was running that online service because so many people were watching. What else can we learn from that? People were curious. They were looking to find out. And I think we lost a bit of that curiosity. But now, after all that's happened in our country with the Queen and all the services that millions and millions of people tuned in for, I think that curiosity is back, and we've got a time window there. So how can we jump on that and meet people where they are asking the questions? And people just wanted that community, didn't they? It was lacking in so many ways, and the church offered that. Again, what can we learn from that now? What can we do? So one of the people that took part in our research was Daniel, and I'll let you read Daniel's story. I think it resonates. It wasn't overwhelming. They could go at their own pace. They met new people. They felt welcomed. Key things that I think all of us should be considering as we're working both online and offline. But what does this mean for you and the digital platforms you are running and working on? How can you make sure it's not overwhelming? People are going at their own pace and people feel welcomed. So, yes, the research clearly told us not to stop just because the pandemic was wherever the pandemic is now. Can we say it's over? I think we can. But wherever we are now, we should not be stopping. We need to continue those relationships. We need to think about all that we learned and go forward. The research also showed that people that didn't connect with their church during lockdown were very, very, very rarely followed up on. I know we're all busy, but is there any following up we could be doing now, particularly ahead of Advent and Christmas? What is there that we could be doing to let people know that last point, that they are welcomed, they are loved? How can we welcome people using these digital platforms? So we're thinking strategy, and perhaps you've got a strategy, great, and you're looking to refresh it. Perhaps you're just starting to write one. Perhaps you're just starting from scratch. Perhaps you know all of this and you're just here to listen. That's great. Whatever your situation is, I think it's handy to think about why on earth are we using social media, and what that goal that we've got, how can we ensure that everything that we're doing online is helping us to fulfill this? You are all very, very busy, and social media can feel like another massive add-on. So why? You've got to be sure on that as you go forward. And like I said, it's not just about services. And if you're not a church, services won't be something that you'll be thinking about. These ways of building that connection and sharing faith go far beyond that collective worship. And that's something that we're really making sure is rooted across our channels. So it's not just the Sunday. And actually something we're trying to get away from is calling it a Sunday service, and instead calling it a weekly service, so that people wherever they are can go back and watch that whenever. We know shift patterns mean that people can't always join on a Sunday. We know that different responsibilities mean that Sunday morning is actually the worst time for so many people. So even the language of calling it a weekly service rather than a Sunday might help there. But yeah, like I said, it's not just about the service. How about your prayers? I gave you those stories about how well our prayers perform. Am I allowed to say that? Across our channels? Is there some just basic prayer content you can regularly be putting out? Weddings and funerals, really, really since the pandemic, this streaming and photos and sharing about these key life events has become common across many churches, local digital channels. Is that something that you're doing? Holding prayer meetings online, or else sharing ways to participate in prayer meetings throughout your channels is another key thing. And just keeping people updated, letting people know how they can come along, and more importantly, that they are welcome. We had an anecdote that if you've ever heard me talk before, I've probably said this, so very, very sorry. But one of our churches, when we were out giving training, once said to us that they used to write, "Join us this week for, the service or small groups or the food bank," whatever it might be. And someone wrote back to say, "Oh, how do I join? How do I become a member?" Because we are so used to joining gyms, joining political parties, joining whatever clubs it might be, where there's a cost involved, there's a form to fill out. So even that language of join can put some people off because they think there's some kind of barrier to entry. So really do consider that in your language. And small groups as well. Loads and loads of small groups are still being held via WhatsApp at lunchtimes. I love that. Or being held on Zoom in the evenings, or on Facebook groups. How can we make sure that wherever people are, they know they can connect? So like I said, what is the purpose? What's your why? Is it to bring as many people into your building, whatever that building is, that you can? Is it to reach out to a specific group? And we're going to talk about audiences in a moment. Is it to make sure your morning prayers are being seen by the most people possible? Or is it to just connect, just that everyone in your town knows that you are there and you are there for them? What's your why? I do like this. Social media is about marketing. Social ministry is about discipleship. It's quite easy to just think about the marketing, and some of the language that I use is that marketing language, but we know that what we've got to offer is far more important than just selling a product. It really is that evangelism and then discipleship piece. So how can we make sure that we are honoring all this hard work that we're putting in for really what it is? And so if we're thinking about that social ministry, what tools do we have? What audience are we trying to reach? And how can we make sure that we're using that time and energy effectively to meet those people where they are? I am whizzing through because we're short on time, but I hope you're all with me. So some cold, hard truths here that most people aren't looking for us. It's a sad thing, but most people aren't looking for us. Many people don't know we're there. They might have walked past our building 100 times, but never really considered what's going on inside. So we need to make sure we are where people are, which of course is why we're bothering with social media. That's where people are. That's where we're more likely to be seen. So how can we make sure that people do know what we're all about? And like I said, it's not just about inviting in to whatever context you're working in. We've moved past that now. I think people are beginning to see that there is real value in just, and I say just, which makes it sound lesser in some way, but just meeting online and having that relationship there. We are exploring the possibility of what a digital chaplain looks like in our team, and who runs those online services that we run. So the goal wouldn't be necessarily to get those people, because we've done the research and those people joining us online are not able, for a number of reasons, to join one of our local worshiping communities. So how can we honor them as a group, as a community, where they are? So that means changing the way that we as churches, and perhaps you in whatever context you're working, measure success, because it's not just about who we're then meeting face to face, but who we can touch, who we can share our message with, who we can reach, and who knows that we're there. I quite like this as well. I'll let you read it. it can be easy to just promote. This is where we're meeting. This is what we're doing. You're welcome to join. But are we actually listening to what our audiences need? I mentioned that curiosity point, and I think we've still got a real opportunity to meet people who are grieving, who the last 2 weeks have brought up a lot of personal stories and emotions. I think people are still curious about why the church played the role it did play in everything we've just seen, and who are just asking questions about perhaps what's to come for them and their families, and whether they can have funerals. I've seen churches do lovely posts about funerals being for everyone. There might not be the pageantry that we saw, but that you can come and meet us when you need it most. So audiences, who is listening? We do really need to think about who we're trying to reach. And like I said, the answer isn't everyone. We need to focus on groups, and those groups might change. Those groups at different times of year, on different days of the week, might change across our platforms, but we do need to be clear on who we're trying to reach, and clear on who they are and what they want from us. So who makes up your community? Do you have a group who are near to you that you aren't connecting with yet, or who you'd like to connect with more? Who is there? Do you have people that come in that could connect with you that you aren't yet? If you're a church, is there a church school, and are there parents and children who you'd love to focus on and get to know you a little bit more? If you're in a city, is there a group of people, a community that you've not been great at reaching out for? How can you get to know that group better? How can you get to know them? Because this feeds what you will do and where you will do it. If you're trying to reach a certain group and all you're using is Facebook and they're not on Facebook, it's going to be tough. It might be that you need to try Instagram. And the best way is to just ask those people. If you're trying to reach younger people, ask those younger people in that group that you're trying to reach where they are, what platforms they're using, and what they're talking about. You can't do everything, and that's absolutely fine. So just be really, really clear on who you're trying to reach, where they are, what they're interested in, and it can all be shaped from there. So you've got to get the why first. Why are you trying to reach that group? Then the who is in that group, where are they, and what are they interested in? And then you can work out the how, which is what platforms you'll be using, how often you'll be posting, and what you'll be saying to them. That is a whistle-stop tour. I hope you took something in. I'm really happy to take any questions, Matt, if we've got time. I know we're slightly behind schedule, but we have got so much more help for you all, as Matt mentioned, on the Church of England website through our Digital Labs program. So this is blogs, webinars, a newsletter, conferences, all about how our churches, but all of you are welcome, can be using digital platforms to strategically grow your local worshiping communities and beyond.